Hello and welcome back to the Scotch Podcast, episode 40. I am Hamish and today we're joined by Dr. Jackson.
Hello.
The leader of the digital technologies, here to talk to us today about the AI week at Scotch that we recently had and just, I guess, where you feel, like what you're feeling about AI at the moment. So I guess we'll get started. So first question, what was the main purpose of AI week for the school and what were your highlights?
I thought it was important to somehow not celebrate, but somehow bring AI to the fore and put it in kind of a neutral space, if that's possible at all. So not have it being a piece that's necessarily about plagiarism or necessarily just about ethics or necessarily in favour or against. It was about bringing to the fore the different issues and the different realities we all now face, both in terms of education and in life. And to bring that across the school or across the senior campus. So to bring those discussions to the fore, to bring it in front of people, very much in a sort of safe space, which I think our library is, a very social and safe space. So not have it part of any sort of lesson, as it were, or anything where students immediately go into that mode of going, oh, I've got an assessment to do, or I've got to learn about those things, or perhaps I shouldn't say this and perhaps I shouldn't say that. So it was very much about that, and it was very much about just having a look at some of the issues that are around this and perhaps some of the things that are not being talked about generally when we look at specific subjects or are not being talked about enough.
Yeah, especially with the whole ChatGPT and Copilot recent craze and that. Mm-hmm. So second question, what is the most interesting or controversial AI-generated image you've seen or heard about? And if you don't have one, that's okay. What were your thoughts on the suspected Kate Middleton AI photo?
Yeah, well, first of all, if you're looking at some of the most controversial, I suppose everybody's got a different opinion on that. I think the most impactful one was not one this year. It was actually last year, was the Pentagon one, where we had that suspected explosion at the Pentagon.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
I remember that one.
And at that time, you know, the idea of AI-generated images was perhaps not as well known as what it is now because things move that fast, although that's not long ago at all. So at that time, that caused controversy, went viral around the world before the reality kicked in that it was actually fake. So when you get something as impactful as that, at a prime moment, at a specific time, then, you know, impact comes down to not just how real the image is, it also comes down to, or how believable the image is, it comes down to timing, it comes down to what it actually means, what's the motive behind it. And that had a lot of issues behind it. It was concerned with particular conflicts that were going on, it was concerned with politics, concerned with superpowers. With it being in America and being at the Pentagon and those kinds of things. So it's about that impact that had. So to me, that was a big one. I think if you move deeper into sort of deep fakes and the idea of videos, we've had a lot more of that, or a lot more of that tends to have more of an impact because images are static, aren't they? But when you bring a video in, you've got something that seems somehow more believable when you put people in situations, especially how easy it is to do quite sophisticated deepfakes now. So I think the most recent one in Victoria that resulted in a lot of actions within a school, again, that's down to impact. It's not necessarily the best deepfake, but when you're using deepfakes to bully individuals or to somehow demean others, then that becomes very, very powerful. So when we look at those kinds of issues, I think they're huge, and they will get bigger and bigger because this technology is getting more and more believable in what it produces and more easy to use, and there are more freemium versions out there. And considering that it's been shown that it can be used, people copy that, people mimic those ideas. And there are malicious people out there. There have been before AI, they still are now.
Yep.
So if we're talking about the Kate Middleton issue, then the reality is that this is a good example to actually highlight that everybody wants to talk about AI, but actually that was nothing to do with AI, or maybe it was. And maybe that doesn't matter, because what it's actually about is somebody who changed an image. Now, changing of images has happened for a long time. It's happened with technology.
Photoshop,
Yes.
all the image editors. Yeah.
Exactly. So, whether it was done with AI or it wasn't done with AI, why is that important to us? And the reality is that if you read most pieces about that, people will talk about AI, and they'll talk about the need for policy in AI. Well, if it's done in Photoshop, those policies, if they're just about AI, are going to have nothing to do with what's done in Photoshop. So, this highlights how we need to think bigger about the issues that we face, and that they're not just confined to AI. All AI does is make these things easier. It focuses on the issues we already have. It makes them worse. It makes them easier to do naughty and horrible things. So all AI is doing is holding a mirror up to aspects of society that have already been issues. Many of the things we're talking about come back to social media. They come back to ethics. They come back to social responsibility. They come back to lack of policy and lack of regulation in some respects, but also lack of education and lack of moral understanding of what's right and wrong, and some of the issues that we're facing when those begin to disappear in certain parts of society.
I think you summed it up pretty well. So just a few tips. How can you tell if an image is AI generated, and what are some, I guess, key things to search for in an image to tell?
Yeah, that can be challenging and getting more and more challenging as AI image generators become more sophisticated, and also users become more sophisticated in using them. But some of the things you're looking for, there are still flaws in certain aspects get missed out in images. For instance, you may get little sections of an image that are just missing or are slightly out of focus, which doesn't go with the rest of the image. You'll get, for instance, the hands thing.
Yeah.
Still very difficult to produce hands that look convincing, either with the right number of fingers or the right sort of shape or the right sort of direction. You're looking at the context of a whole photo. If you're looking at a particular photograph, you might look at okay, if we're looking at this whole photograph, where's the background of the foreground? Do they actually look as if they're part of the same picture? Is just like an assembly of different items? But in another respect, depending on the type of photo, if you're looking at sort of the macro type things, something that's really zoomed in, you might look for something that's too perfect almost.
Yeah.
Almost as if it's been CGI'd.
AI likes to make things really perfect.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Especially in that respect. Or the colours are too bright.
Yeah.
But if somebody's done really good macro image, some of those can actually be that perfect as well. So it does become increasingly difficult. But it's a number of aspects you're looking for, and let's be honest, sometimes it's very, very challenging, if not nearly impossible, to tell the difference.
Off that now, I think we've got a game for us to play to test if what you've just said is true, and if you can really differentiate the difference between AI and real images. So we've got this game for you on the laptop. So this is a game. It's going to show you a fake image, and it's going to show you a real image. All you have to do is click on the fake one. You have a time limit. The most you can click in the time limit is your score. Higher the score, the better. So let's see how you do.
So no pressure at all, especially with time.
No pressure.
Okay, so I would say this one, and then I would say this one. Oh, I got one.
Second one.
Okay.
You got on the second one.
Okay, so I got it wrong on the second one. See, there I was trying to second guess myself.
Yeah.
Almost the two perfect. The first one I could sort of tell because of the colours.
Yeah, it's got a glossy... AI images usually have that weird glossy finish. If I can beat Dr. Jackson.
I have no doubt you can.
Let's see.
I feel that you've played this before.
This is challenging. I know I'm running out of time. Oh, I got 18.
18. So
the
the best score I've seen on that game is actually 22.
22.
I know.
Lightning fingers.
Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Assistant.
But that's a very good game in exposing that macro thing I'm talking about, and I think it exposes the reality that is very challenging, isn't it?
Yeah.
So you're looking at things, and let's face it, if you are looking at things in a short space of time, that's what we do with images, don't we? We don't study them.
I think if we didn't have that time, I think it'd be a little easier, but it's just the pressure and everything. So with the controversy about people using AI to cheat on tests, exams. How do you think AI should not be used in schools? Like, what's a bad example?
So a bad example is anything that removes your capacity to learn or your capacity to think. So the moment that a student is giving away too much of their thought or all of their thought or all of their the learning that's supposed to happen with what you do within school, that's the moment that the edge is, that the tipping point is, we've gone over the tipping point. But that can be very difficult to judge if you're getting close to that, how much you give away. But there's clear and obvious examples of where it completely goes away. So, for instance, if somebody gives you a particular essay question and you just put that in a chat bot and then you copy and paste the answer across, then you've done no learning whatsoever. You've not considered the answer. You've not done anything with that. It's not your work at all. So that's a clear example of where, in that case, a chatbot's being used. But then if we peel back from there and we go, well, what if that was done, but then the answer was read by the individual and 10% of it was changed? And what if 20% of it was changed then? What if 30%? What if 40%? Or what if the answer from the chatbot was read by the individual and they read it all and went, I think that's still a good answer, and submitted that? Is that giving away the learning? And these are all grey area questions that we really have to decide in terms of our values, and that, I believe, that can only happen within a context that the learning happens. Different schools will have different values about that, and indeed different faculties within different schools will have different values about that. Obviously, we can't have everybody's individual values being the same, because if they're all considered and we come to some agreement, well, that's fine, but we're not going to come to some agreement. What you believe in that percentage example is giving away too much is going to be different than what I believe. But we have to come to some consensus, because the reality is AI is not going to go away. Generative AI is going to be a part of your life, my life, and is now. That's been for a while, actually. And it becomes more and more accessible and more powerful. So one of the things that I say quite often is, and I've said this here with staff and I've said this to students as well, is that, well, right at this moment, AI has flaws. Going forward, it will have less flaws until the point where you don't even notice the flaws. So if we've got to that point where we're trusting the output, what happens then?
Yeah. It's getting more and more sophisticated, as you said, and it's, Looking forward, how do you think AI will be used in schools, and maybe Scotch in particular?
Well, I think we have to learn to work with different AI tools and learn to work alongside this technology and have this technology assist us. And that comes back to the values we have as well. And we're doing that. We've done experimentation in a variety of areas. We've got active and ongoing assessment changes that have been made here. We've got activities where we are taking a positivist stance. We're looking at, well, if AI can do this certain element that we don't need to do, what does that free us up to do? Or we might look at an assessment task and go, I know it's easy for a chatbot to produce the answer to this if we left it in its original format. So what we might do is change up the assessment where we actually use AI and then consider the output it gives us and analyze that and then use that in the assessment rather than just asking the question outright. So if you turn that thing on its head just in that simple example, is rather than it just being, here's a question, it's up to you to answer the question. If AI can assist you with answering that question, using AI alongside that, and then you're manipulating that output and you're evaluating and analyzing that output, or you may use AI in this respect and then not use it in something else. So you may look at it to get the information and get the facts, but then if you're looking at your own personal opinion, that's not necessarily something AI is very good at the moment. So if you're looking to personalize something and you're giving your opinion on something, that's perhaps something that doesn't get used with AI. So we've got these examples here that I'm talking about where AI is assisting. It's there to enhance your work. But at the same time, we've also got examples where you're going, this is used with AI and this is not used with AI. Now, I do think that second example is going to go away in a lot of different respects. We're not going to see much of that. We're going to have to learn to be working with this technology, same as the majority of time you spend your time on a laptop. That's what will happen with AI. And indeed, the question of when are you working with AI? Because at the moment, we have to go most of the time to separate programs to use AI.
Yeah.
But that's not happening in your real life. You don't come out of Spotify to use AI. You're using AI within Spotify.
Yeah.
You're not coming out of Netflix to use AI. You're using AI within Netflix. So we'll not be able to tell when and where you are and are not using AI. So we have to understand that this technology is going to exist and it's going to predict things and it's going to guess the next thing and it's going to suggest things to you and it's going to lead you down certain paths.
Yeah, lots of grey area involving AI. You know, what's right, what's wrong, what do we have to take into consideration, what can we abuse. So, yeah, thank you so much for answering these questions. Thanks so much for playing the game. Sorry I beat your butts. But yeah, thank you. Join us in the next episode of the Scotch Podcast, and yeah, we'll see you around. Thank you so much,
Thank you,
Jackson, for joining us.
Bye.